There are tons of really cool and powerful monsters in D&D, but not all of them can be an ancient red dragon or a Tarrasque that's also a lich. Though, now that I think about it, maybe they could be. Of all the baddies in this book, there have to be some that are tamer than others. A couple of them have to be the awakened shrubs and the flumps, but then there's the Rug of Smothering, which is a rug that smothers. And honestly, it's not even the most boring thing in the monster manual when it comes to stats and abilities. It's just the only one that's a literal floor mat, which to me made it the perfect option to turn into a legendary monster. So let's take a quick look at the stat block for this animated floor decor, and then we'll beef it up a bit. Right off the jump, this large CR2 construct is indistinguishable from a typical rug when it lays motionless. A perfect security guard and ambush predator, it sits strewn across the manor floor waiting for an unsuspecting intruder before it springs up and attacks. But before we get to that, there is one feature it has that we really should talk about first. Because it has anti-magic susceptibility, it has a major glaring weakness. If it ever finds itself in an anti-magic field, it just immediately falls incapacitated, not able to take actions or reactions. Which, in fairness, is kind of a niche situation. That's a low to mid-tier 8th level spell, and you're not going to see it too often. But the rug is still messed up pretty badly by the much simpler dispel magic. If your local wizard or sorcerer casts that, it has to make a constitution saving throw against the caster's spell difficulty class, or they fall inert and unconscious for a minute, at which point the party can just walk away, or stab the rug a bunch, or set it on fire. Their options are truly limitless. As for its ability scores, they're not so hot either. +3 to strength, +2 to dexterity, and a 0 in constitution. That's fine, I guess, nothing to sneeze at, but that 0 in con is not going to be helping you against any dispel magics anytime soon. And then there's a -5 modifier for charisma and intelligence, and a -4 in wisdom too. But that makes sense, it's a frickin' rug! Speaking of which, it's only got an armor class of 12, so it's pretty easy to hit, and with only 33 hit points total, it might sound like this thing won't be sticking around very long, even against a low-level adventuring party.
But I don't know about that.
With its smother action, the rug makes a melee weapon attack that initiates a grapple on someone medium or smaller. The rug wraps around the creature, restraining them, impeding their vision, and suffocating them until they run out of air. Fun! On the enveloped creature's turn, they can make a DC 13 athletics or acrobatics check to try to escape, but not before they take 2d6 +3 bludgeoning damage from the rug at the start of their turn. And on top of all that, while grappling, any damage done to the rug will be split between it and the creature it's wrestling with. So those 33 hit points might last a little longer than you might think at first glance, but it's still far from being a legendary monster. So let's turn this living tapestry into something that should be genuinely feared. High on a hill on the outskirts of town sits an old abandoned mansion. It used to belong to a well-to-do family some 30 to 40 years ago, until they and all their staff mysteriously disappeared. And since then, the years of neglect have done no justice to this estate as it fell into disrepair. Of all those foolhardy enough to have entered it since, nary a soul has returned, because in these long, deserted halls, something lurks. Motionless for days, months, years at a time. Like the original Rug of Smothering, when it lays still, it is indistinguishable from a typical long red runner. But when someone sets foot in its mansion, it knows. And silently, this long and elegant vermilion carpet begins to hunt. It travels along the ground, drawing little attention to itself. If the intruder doesn't know what to look for, they likely won't notice until it's too late. This creature, known as the Zoetic Scarlet Carpet, is much more deadly than the simple Rug of Smothering, but the two do share some similar traits. For example, it too is susceptible to anti-magic, but with much better stats across the board, especially strength and constitution, the chance of it falling unconscious to a dispel magic are much lower. And even if it does, its legendary resistance allows it to succeed on a failed saving throw 3 times a day. While it hunts prone against the ground, it will spring up impossibly fast when it's time to attack. Taking the stance of a massive winding snake, this sort of bending and convoluted nebulous form allows it to enter other creatures' space, and other creatures to enter the carpets if they are so inclined. But doing so is not without peril, as any creature moving through the space does so at half speed, as the area is difficult terrain. They are also at disadvantage for checks to resist being grappled, making them particularly susceptible to a smother attack, which works pretty similarly to the Rug Smother except with a higher attack bonus, damage output, and escape DC, doing 3d6 plus 7 damage at the start of a creature's turn and requiring an athletics or acrobatics check of 18 or higher to escape, and it can wrap up to 3 creatures in this way. And like the Rug, while smothering a creature, any damage done to the carpet is split between it and one of the grappled creatures. Which one receives that other half of the damage is up to fate, or the DM, which is basically the same thing. But keeping your distance won't necessarily guarantee your safety. Within the roiling mass are 4 hallway runners with a 30-foot reach. When hit by one of these appendages, a creature takes 2d8 plus 7 bludgeoning damage and is again grappled. Though this is a different grapple than the smother action. Well, that one will restrain, blind, and suffocate them all while doing passive damage. This just restrains them. But with their constrict action, the carpet can squeeze any of their grappled prey, which does 3d6 plus 7 damage, or half as much on a success of a DC 20 strength saving throw. All the while its friction burn action allows it to target a creature within 10 feet by rapidly running its coarse fibers against them, doing 4d6 fire damage and 4d4 lightning, as both the friction and static electricity bombard their target. And finally, with Unfurl, the carpet can throw any grappled creature up to 80 feet away, either aiming at a hard surface or another adventurer. For every 10 feet the creature is thrown, they take 1d6 bludgeoning damage and are knocked prone. And if a creature has their friend thrown at them, they have to make a dexterity saving throw to avoid the same damage. So you should get ready for a pretty tough fight, especially because it's also got legendary actions too, allowing it to make an Unfurl, Constrict, Hallway Runner, or Smother attack at the end of your player's turns up to 3 times each round. And lastly, we've got to give this thing some lair actions. If you don't know, when you fight a monster in their lair, like going against a dragon in their den or a lich in their tower, when the battle hits an initiative of 20, some additional dangers come from the environment. Most legendary monsters have something like this, just to really mix up the battle here and there. For this guy, one of their lair actions has the inanimate rugs and carpets in the mansion suddenly act like conveyor belts, shifting players in a straight line up to 20 feet. Alternatively, all the rugs and carpets within 80 feet of the monster might try to ensnare the legs and feet of your adventuring party. Lastly, the lair may charge with substantial static electricity, and for the next round, when a creature comes in contact with another non-construct, they both take 2d8 lightning damage as an arc of electricity shocks them both.
Science! Science! Static electricity!
And that's everything you need to know about the Rug of Smothering's glow up. Fun fact, I was originally going to make it an orange color, but then of course I remembered the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards and the orange carpet, and because I didn't want any kind of confusion with that, I went with red because there's no relevant red carpets. Wait. If you want to check out the stat blocks for this monster, there's a link in the description. And while you're down there, why don't you like, comment, and subscribe? Or follow me on Twitter @NotFromJupiter and follow the channel @NoDiceTweets. Or you can check out one of my other videos here. Bye-bye!